The Silence of the Lambs is the 1991 crime thriller directed by Jonathan Demme. It stars Jodie Foster as a young rookie FBI agent in training, as she is put on a task force to help hunt and stop a crazed serial killer on the loose. Her first assignment on the task force is to interview an incarcerated killer, the infamous Dr. Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter. Hannibal plays mind games with Foster's character, Clarice Starling, as he enters into the haunting depths of her tragic past. Both killer and FBI agent confide their secrets to one another, while also tracking down the serial killer known as Buffalo Bill, a crazed lunatic who skins his victims alive. The Silence of the Lambs polarized audiences and critics around the world, and it won 5 Academy Awards for all the major categories. It won Best Picture, Director, and Anthony Hopkins took home the mantle for Actor, while Jodie Foster respectively won for Actress. The Silence of the Lambs is a great film that showcases the power of female-driven stories. Clarice Starling, while vulnerable, is tough. She overcomes a lot of adversity in the FBI, but she also faces off with 2 extremely dangerous and psychopathic serial killers while holding her own. She is not a damsel in distress. She is a butt-kicking FBI agent with a lot of depth and emotion in her character. The film has a lot of comparisons to William Friedkin's The Exorcist in one very important way. When The Exorcist came out, people were terrified because the subject matter is very real. Demon possession is actually possible, and seeing it for the first time on screen was terrifying. The same goes for Silence of the Lambs. There are very real and notorious serial killers that do horrendous things, whether it being Jeffrey Dahmer or John Wayne Gacy. The characters Buffalo Bill and Hannibal Lecter are based on a lot of these famous killers in history, and the way the actors portrayed these characters was real and frightening. Of course, the biggest contribution that this film had on cinema is the character Hannibal himself. Anthony Hopkins fully immersed himself in the role, and he brought a uniqueness to the character that we have never seen in a film before. Hannibal Lecter is considered to be one of the scariest and popular movie monsters in cinema, and rightfully so. Hannibal is charming, polite, yet incredibly violent and scary. Anthony Hopkins electrified the screen, and the chemistry between Hannibal and Clarice is polarizing. Take one scene in the movie. When Clarice Starling first meets Hannibal Lecter, Hannibal tests her with obscure dialogue that is philosophical, blunt, and methodical.
You see a lot, Doctor. But are you strong enough to point that high-powered perception at yourself? What about it? Why don't you look at yourself and write down what you see? Maybe you're afraid to.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Hannibal hissing was improvised into the film, which really scared and creeped out Jodie Foster. The fava beans and Chianti line is one of the most famous movie lines in cinema. The voice for Hannibal was somewhere between a mix of Truman Capote and Katharine Hepburn. Anthony Hopkins saw Hannibal as a version of Hal from Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. He said he is highly intelligent, complex, and a logical killing machine who knows everything that's going on around him. The film shares a lot of themes and tropes that were used in the film Seven, where bodies of victims are found, revealing clues that lead the heroes to the villains. In this case, a death's head moth is found in each of the victims' mouths.
Why does he place them there, Doctor?
The significance of the moth is change. Caterpillar into chrysalis or pupa, and from thence into beauty.
The symbol of the moth is change. Buffalo Bill is sending hidden messages, which basically shows that he is slowly changing genders, much like a moth or a butterfly do, from cocoon to moth, caterpillar to butterfly. The artwork for the moth on the movie's poster contains hidden imagery and is an exact copy of painter Salvador Dali's famous piece, Seven Naked Women. The naked women form the outline of a skull, which in the film is important because that's how many women Buffalo Bill is said to have captured and killed. The Silence of the Lambs became a staple in the horror genre, and its influence on pop culture spanned many sequels and produced a very successful television show in 2013. Silence of the Lambs created the quintessential crime drama, and since its release, audiences have been captivated by serial killers. The film reaches into the darkest depths of the human mind, where cannibalism can only be enjoyed with some fava beans and Chianti.
On the related subject, I must confess to you, I'm giving very serious thought to eating your wife.